welcome back to Heart with me, Shakti Sundari, and I'm super excited. This morning we're going to be talking with one of my heroines of Kundalini Yoga and mantra music, Jai-Jagdeesh.
तेरी मेरा बोलना तुझ आगे अरदास गुरु गुरु वाहे गुरु गुरु रामदास आद गुरे नमे जुगाद गुरे नमे Satguru Name Sri Gurudev Name Adguru Name Jugaguru Name Satguru Name Sri Gurudev Name Adguru Name Jugaguru Name Satguru Name Sri Gurudev Name Adguru Name, Jugaguru Name, Satguru Name, Sri Gurudev Name. Swaha Tatsarju Parani Ambar Modevasya Dhimahi Dhiyo Yona Prachodayat Om Bhuva Swaha Tatsarju Parani Ambar Modevasya Dhimahi Dhiyo Yona Prachodayat Om Bhuva Swaha Tatsarju Parani Ambar Modevasya Dhimahi Dhiyo Yona Prachodayat Om Bhuva Swaha Tatsavitu Vareniyam Bhargo Devasya Dhimahi Dhiyo Yona Prachodayat Om Bhuva Swaha Tatsavitu Vareniyam Bhargo Devasya Dhimahi Dhiyo Yona Prachodayat Om Bhuva Swaha Tatsavitu Vareniyam Bhargo Devasya Dhimahi Dhiyo Yona Prachodayat. Shanti Om 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 Shalom Shalom Shalom.
I've always known that this was what you were going to be doing.
Goodness, no. It's been such a long, winding road. I mean, I was certain in my 20s that I was going to be a Hollywood movie star. That was quite clear in my mind, and it was a product of having grown up in India, watching Bollywood films and falling madly in love with them, and also being a bit of a filmophile in general, just loving the movie industry, and mistaking something in that, and I sort of have a little bit of a performer's vibe in the way that I am in my life anyway. I'm a bit of a ham. No apologies, total embracing. But it seemed to fit quite well together. And also I had a lot of really cool opportunities to be on stage. I did theater in DC for years, and things kept coming my way. And I thought to myself, all right, I can't move to New York because you have to be a triple threat to make your way there, and I can't sing.
What? Hang on a second. I can't
I know.
When was that?
It's all right. If I do timelines properly, that was in about 2005. I had an experience as a teenager where I had had a music partner for a long time. She and I traveled around at school in India, and we shared music as representatives of the school that we went to over there. In terms of a connection to being a maker of sound, I had had this experience at school in India of all of us, not all of us, my music partner and I being a team for a while. And then one year, she returned from summer vacation and had a new music partner. And this was totally fine. There's no reason to take such a thing personally, but a tender teenage heart would see that and feel that as rejection, as you're not good enough. I'm with someone else now because I like that better. And the way that I assimilated that information, the way that I assimilated that experience was a little feedback loop in my mind that was validated by that experience, saying you're not good enough. And if a partner chooses someone else over you, well, you certainly can't do it alone. So I got really quiet for a while. And I did other creative things. I studied photography in school and dug a bit into creative writing, public speaking, all of that. And I had begun studying classical Indian dance the year after I graduated high school, and continued that when I moved back to the States. And there was a lot of creativity in my flow. And then acting came into the picture because Bollywood was such a fabulous thing to me. I mean, I was sure I was going to be the next big Bollywood movie star. But then I made the logical choice to do the Hollywood thing because I figured it would be easy to transition from Hollywood to Bollywood and maybe harder to transition from Bollywood to Hollywood. I mean, I laugh so much when I think about it now. But because of this tender-hearted teenage experience, I looked at New York as impossible because you had to sing, dance, and act, and there was no singing in the equation. I could act and I could dance. So I turned my focus instead to Los Angeles, and I moved there, and ironically enough, that was where all of my spiritual reconnection happened. I was so meant to be there. I was so meant to be plugged into certain communities and tribes there that would either light a particular fire underneath me and get me to start asking questions, or would provide me with the resources that I needed to explore things that I was feeling ready to explore.
Had you dropped the whole sort of yoga and meditation practice?
Completely. I never had a steady practice as a kid. I did a 40-day meditation on a bribe as a teenager. My parents said to my brother and I, so this meditation, Kirtan Kriya, you know it?
Yeah.
Satanama?
Yeah.
If you do it, we'll give you $1 a day. If you hit 40 days, we'll double it. And I was like, yes, I can earn $80 just for meditating. I'll do it. And we had an ice cream party at the end and everything. I'm pretty sure I fell asleep during day 38, but my parents totally honored the deal anyway. It was so funny. So I required total bribery the first time out the gate. And as a teenager at school in India, you know, we had an early morning meditation and sadhana practice. We'd go to the Golden Temple first thing in the morning.
God, everyone watching this thing to be going, oh my God, she would go to the Golden Temple every day.
I know. It's such when I step outside of my life and look at the experiences I've had, I'm like, dude, that was unreal. And then from inside of it, it feels just all quite normal.
Yeah.
But yeah, for reasons of I'd had enough, and for reasons of, hey, I'm ready to blend in with the world, and for reasons of my soul having a very clear understanding of needing to go on an entirely different journey for a while. Yeah. I just sort of left it by the wayside and did my college thing and clipped my name down. Nobody knew that my name was Jai-Jagdeesh Kaur Khalsa. It was Jai. It was easy to pronounce. It was easy to spell. I mean, people still mixed it up all the time. One of my college professors, she's going down the roster at the beginning. I think it was a math class. She's going down the roster and she comes to my name. I always know when people come to my name when they're reading from a list. She sort of furrows her brow. She goes, is it hi, Khalsa? I think she was pretty sure I was a Hispanic man. So actually, whenever I go to Mexico, oftentimes they're pretty sure my name is Jai-Jagdeesh, which is impossibly charming. On occasion, I introduce myself as Jai-Jagdeesh in Latin American countries, but I don't know, I simplified everything. And even going into the world of acting, I made sure that my name was as short and sweet and easily digested as possible. And in the context of Los Angeles, man, I learned so many good things as a holder of space. You wouldn't believe the classes that I took during my training for this acting career, because you were sort of always in classes to ensure that you were at the top of your game. Mm-hmm. And so I took Patsy Rodenberg's vocal workshops, and I took an Alexander technique class and on-camera stuff, and just had my hands in so many different pots. Is that even an expression? I'm going to say yes.
Dance when you've torn the bandage off. Dance in the middle of your fighting, in the middle of your fighting. Dance in your bones. Dance in your blood. Dance. Dance. Until you're perfectly free. Dance. Until you're perfectly free.
In that process of getting to know my physical body more and trying out the craft more and learning how to deepen it and everything, I then also reconnected with yoga and sound current. And oh God, we could talk for hours about how exactly it happened, but the long story short is that a very good friend of mine, Guru Ganesha, who was touring with Sanathan for years and has since formed his own band, the Guru Ganesha Band. My father's in that band, by the way. Mm-hmm. Yeah. He was striking out on his own, and he invited Niranjan to go on tour with him because she was an emerging artist, and he wanted to have the masculine-feminine polarity and get that out. And he's got wanderlust. He likes to be on the road, and he loves to be with people sharing these sacred sounds. He wrote to me and he said, listen, I saw this dance performance you did at summer solstice in New Mexico. I'd be curious to know if you would like to come on the road with me for 5-6 weeks in the fall and do a dance performance to open each of our concerts. And my first response was, no, that sounds terrifying. I don't want to do that at all, because it was going to require me to show up in a whole different way. And he wanted something that was choreographed on a particular theme. His album that had just come out was called Birth of Joy. No, excuse me, that was the name of my dance piece. What was it called? Joy is Now. Joy is Now. And I sort of riffed on that theme in crafting a performance piece that highlighted what happens when we plant seeds that become more of who we are or more of what we're meant to do, and then make it possible for us to have the joy that we all long to have in our lives. And it was also, thematically, it was being asleep for a while and dreaming of a life in which there was expression and freedom and everything, and then waking up and feeling trapped, and then coming into a space of empowerment somehow. Like there was a switch that flipped and I was like, oh, I can actually move the way that I could when I was in my dream, and that's in the here and now. And yeah, it was a very cathartic process to choreograph that piece. And frankly, up to that point, I had never really finished anything in my creative life. Everything always had like one last little bit that was left undone. And I know that that was some psychological thing in my system, but I put the last movement in place for this dance piece and I burst into tears, because it was it was like, oh, I did it and I can do it. And you know, so I went out on the road with that piece. And it was so funny. Each successive concert on that tour, Guru Ganesha would turn to me and ask me to be more involved. So the first night I did my dance performance, and then I went away, and I was also the merch girl. So I went and sat at the merch table until their concert was done and said hello to everybody and helped them pay for their CDs, and that was that. Next night, during sound check, Guru Ganesha turns to me and he says, hey, would you maybe do some improv dancing during the instrumental sections of some of our pieces? And I was like, okay, totally terrified, but yeah, all right, let's give it a go. And it was a lot of fun and it was a lot of freedom. It was where I learned that I could move without a framework. I hadn't really done that before. Everything had always been choreographed. And I found myself pulling ideas from thin air, and sometimes I'd watch the playback, somebody would record it and I'd watch it and go, that was sort of unimaginative, do it better next time, because we're hard on ourselves. But at the same time, I would be inspired to see, oh, that combination is actually quite cool, and ooh, I've never done that before. And so, learning, growing. And then maybe the third or fourth concert in, he said, could you do a celestial communication during one of the pieces? And I was like, actually, as it happens, you're singing Adi Shakti, and when I was a young child, I made one to Adi Shakti, so that works well. 5, 6, 7 concerts in. Can we give you a mic and have you add some vocals to this song that we want to be more boisterous? We want it to have more layers, more energy. And that's when I really freaked the fuck out. If you need to bleep that, you can. I sort of felt everything clutch in me, because fear is like a vice grip sometimes, and I said yes, sort of in spite of myself, like, well, I'll be in the background. No one will really hear me. No one's really going to care. I could make a lot of mistakes and it won't be noticeable because everybody else is further up. Yeah. And it was the perfect starting experience, because I sang without worrying so much. Since I was buried in the background and since the focus was elsewhere, I started to sing and I started to try sounds that I was hearing in my head. And I felt my heart open. I felt everything in my being completely shift. And there was a little voice inside of me that said very clearly, this is what's been missing. Do more of this. And I didn't listen to it right away. I heard it loud and clear, but I didn't listen to it right away. I sort of went, yeah, all right. but I sang along with that piece for the duration of the concerts. I know, I've cried a lot of tears over this too. I had a lot of fun finding new creative ways of being buried in the background and letting that part of me begin to open. And then I went home and was sort of quiet again, but something had opened unmistakably and would eventually lead to me sitting down to my harmonium again. A harmonium that had been bought for me when I was a teenager at school in India, and I hadn't touched it in so many years. And I asked my mother if she could ship it over to Los Angeles for me, and I would begin to tinker with it again.
I heard there was a secret chord David played and it pleased the Lord, but you don't really care for music, do ya? Well, it goes like this: the fourth, the fifth, the minor fall, the major lift, the baffled king composing hallelujah, 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 hallelujah.
And at first I played everybody else's music. I had favorite songs that I had grown up listening to in our genre, in our community. And I also had shabads, hymns from the Sikh tradition that I had grown up playing that were still familiar to my fingers. So I would play those, but I started to sing them in a different way, because I heard all these sounds bouncing around like possibilities of ways to make sound that I hadn't heard in our community before. And also, I mean, I had grown up in the context of Indian musicians and Gurbani Kirtan from the Sikh tradition, which is very specific. Yeah. And the voices sound a certain way. And my voice doesn't fit in that framework. My sound is deeper. It's more earthy, and I can't hit any of the notes that get hit. And so that further validated my idea that I didn't have a good voice, or a voice that was really, or that it wasn't cosmic or karmic in any way. It was just my voice, that was it. So I would sing other people's songs and begin to make them my own. And then one day, I just made a little 2-chord thing and sang a shabad that I knew in a way that I'd never heard before, melodically and in my way of expressing it. And I finished and I went, oh, I've just written a song. It was such a shock to me. I didn't know that I could. I mean, I didn't study music. I didn't study music theory. I didn't study voice technique. It just, you don't think you're qualified. Nobody had given me a degree in this, and so I was certain I was wildly unqualified. But all of a sudden, I had done this, and there was a really sweet melody, and I quite loved it, and I was able to remember it again the next day, which was key.
What was it?
It's not on any album yet, but it's coming out on the next album. We've recorded it, and it's different than it was when I wrote it. Let me just say that now. It's the Mother's Blessing, and it'll be called Assis on this next album, which means blessing. And the loose translation is, "Oh my child, this is your mother's blessing. May you never forget God even for a moment," and it goes on through that sort of theme. And I wrote it in quite a sweet, soft way. And it didn't fit on the first album, actually. We made a scratch track of it and thought that it might have a home on I Am 9, but that got filled up with other things, and everything else was like a family, and this was like just completely out of left field. So we let it be, and we thought maybe it'll find a home on the next one, and it didn't. And then what I've worked on now, well, there's a lot of rawness in this one. This album was recorded in the week after the 2016 presidential election. And my father fell off the roof of my parents' home on election day and broke his back. Fractured his L1, but in my mind, he broke his back. One of the hardest days of my whole life. And I went into the studio so raw, and all of the material was already quite raw. It was this conversation between, one song is called Hold Your Hand, and it's a conversation from the divine to the mortal, saying, you know, you can do whatever you're gonna do. You can dislike me in the process, you can condemn me in the process, you can love and praise me if you want, whatever. Doesn't matter what happens, I'm gonna hold you regardless. And it's sensitive, it's soft and sweet and so tender. And one song that's on this album is a breakup song. I wrote it here in Bali just after a relationship had ended at a very far distance and in a very complicated way. And there's another song that's about being unapologetically yourself, no matter how much somebody else might sort of try to jostle you. So it had this sort of open wound freshness to it, the whole collection of stuff that was being recorded. And this Mata Ki Assis fit right in that pocket. And it's very jazzy, bluesy, deep, wild. I mean, I love it, but it's sort of out of, I think what's come through for this next album is sort of out of left field in terms of what has existed so far in this genre and in this music space.
What's the title of this next album?
You know, I have an idea of it, but it's not concrete yet, so I can't tell you, because, yeah, you can call it the Untitled 2017 project.
as a role model, as an embodiment of the feminine and the feminine divine, and who you are and as you sing. Is that something that is important to you, or do you just consider yourself as who you are and you don't really think so much about that aspect of your being?
I didn't think about it much when, well, as a teenager or a young adult, and when my career first started, I didn't focus on it. When I first started practicing yoga and meditation again and sort of sank into my soul, it's not so much that I saw myself as genderless, but I stopped paying attention to my femininity. And I think we all go through some version of this, or maybe I'm totally wrong, but when a spiritual practice is undertaken in earnest and you connect so deeply to something inside of yourself, the physical form sort of falls away a bit, and the labels and identities in the process of actress falling away and person who doesn't speak up for herself falling away. Also, my embodiment as a woman fell away a bit. I got rid of all of my girly dresses and all of my high heels, and that was a good move because, oh my God, they're painful. But all the things that had frilliness to them, they not only got put into storage, but I straight up gave them away. I gave them to Goodwill and thought, somebody else will make great use of these. I am busy being a yogi. And I didn't wear white all the time, but I'd wear like genie pants and a tunic that were decidedly unexpressive of my femininity. And one day, a couple years into that, my music career had begun and was going more beautifully than anyone has a right to expect. And I was out in the world performing and sharing and teaching and having a great time doing it. And something started to flutter inside of me of this reminder that I had breasts and I had curves and I had impulses and I had feelings that were decidedly womanly, and how weird it was that they were seeming new to me, or foreign almost, or wrong. There was a little part of it that struck me as wrong. Like, no, yogis don't behave this way, or yogis don't do that. And I think I went to TJ Maxx one day and flipped through their dress section, looking at all the ruffles and the pretty sort of chiffon fabrics and stuff, and I found one that was this shocking fuchsia. It was like, it's a punch in the face kind of fuchsia that had these ruffles right here. It was long and goddessy with a thigh-high slit and a sort of a cinching right here. And I tried it on and I looked at myself in the mirror and I went, oh yeah. I will own this dress, and maybe I'll never wear it, but I like how I feel in it right now, and I will own this dress. So I don't think I had much money at that point, but I prioritized that over something else, surely. And it was sort of step one on the path of rediscovering my physical form, my femininity, dare I say, my goddessness, you know, all these things that we are and that we sometimes just button up and or deflect or hide in some way. And so I bought another dress and it was a little bit more form-fitting, and I bought another one, and before I knew it, I was expressing myself through my clothing in the same way that I express myself with my words, in the same way that I express myself through music or photography or creative writing or any of it. Yeah. It was an extension of me, and it allowed me to feel like the feminine being I am. And when I watched myself have that transformation, I thought, goodness, I wonder how often this happens to people. I wonder how often this happens to women who are on a spiritual path. And so I kept my ear open to it without really making a conscious effort to share that. But I would have women come up to me and articulate something about some facet of self that I had embodied and shown them in the process of teaching a workshop or doing a concert or whatever. that they needed to see and hear and feel from someone they maybe considered a role model or someone whose work they enjoyed. I sort of went, oh, this is important too. Okay.
I will climb into your ocean, I will sail onto your shore. I will breathe in your magnificence, never ask for more. I will be as I am written, courage on every page. I will carve this life with every breath, a sage of the age. I will turn up the fountain and fill this world with bliss. I will sing a song of joyful love and merge into your kiss. And I will stumble into beauty, recognizing that it's me. I will open up my heart and surrender unto thee. I am the child, I am the mother, I am your bride and your lover. I am everything, great and small. I am the one, I am it all. I am the child, I am the mother, I am your bride and your lover. I am everything, great and small. I am the one, I am it all. I am the light of love. I am the light of love. I am the light of love. I am the light of love.
A couple years ago, there was a hashtag that started up on Twitter, Yes All Women. Did you ever see that happen? And it was women talking about stigmas, limitations, abuse, a lot of things. I mean, I can't even recollect one specifically that could sum it all up for us, but it was this wide-ranging thing, and I got stuck in the Twitter feed once, the Yes All Women hashtag, reading through people's 140 characters or less accounts of feeling threatened, having been abused, having a man explain things to them as though they weren't also an authority on the subject, and like just the undercurrent of misogyny and disrespect that has existed in certain ways for so long, and being paid less for the same job, and on and on and on. I was stuck in this feed for about an hour, and my blood was boiling by the end of it. It shook something open in me, and I started to write about it. And I haven't done a lot of writing about it, but it was sort of the beginning of my choice to be more of an activist. I don't think I can actually claim to be an activist because activism requires actual action. And for me, there's a lot of writing about it that is active for sure, but I'm not in the streets protesting at the moment. I'm traveling the world singing at the moment, so there's not a lot of street time available to me. But writing about the things that I feel passionate about, and that has come to include so many things, from Yes All Women, to Black Lives Matter, to No DAPL, to intersectional feminism, to all the things that I feel are going to turn us into a global community, because there's a lot of isolation all over the world, and we belong to each other. We need to be reminded of this over and over, maybe, and we're never going to come to some utopian ideal where everybody agrees with one another. The nature of the human experience is being able to have all this unique awesomeness in one body. But man, I hope that we come to a space where respect and integrity is at the top of people's list of values and how they conduct themselves in the world. And I'm grateful for all the conversations that are happening now about all of those things and more. And grateful for the dialogue. They're hard conversations often. I didn't realize my white privilege for a while. I didn't realize how lucky I am to have white skin. We all, as women, bear certain crosses, and so I have seen that clearly for a long time. But it wasn't until people started talking really loudly about the Black Lives Matter movement that I went, oh, the fact that I'm not involved in that is a problem. The fact that I'm not actively speaking up about this movement and why it exists is, well, silence is complicity. And I think often as yogis we think that silence is neutrality, or we think that using the positive mind is the way to go, and only preaching love and joy and let's shift our perspectives and hold space for higher consciousness. Yes, all of the above. But if you look at, there's a great flowchart in the Civil Rights Museum in Atlanta, which I visited last summer. I was on a cross-country road trip and made it a priority to go through, did I just say Alabama?
You said
No.
Atlanta.
Atlanta, thank you, that's what I meant to say.
Yeah.
I made it a priority to go through Georgia so I could hit Atlanta and go to these historic sites where Martin Luther King Jr. spoke, where he was born. And I made my way to the Civil Rights Museum, and I sort of trembled with frustration and sadness the whole time I walked through. It's so not okay. There's no part of it that was ever okay. And the fact that there were at one point in time, and are still, people who feel like what happened was all right, oh, that breaks my heart into many, many, many pieces. But I digress. I saw this flowchart on the wall there that highlighted the oppressor and the oppressed and the silence person, whose silence only ever serves the oppressor. Because the oppressor is the person in power. The oppressor is the person with the finger on the trigger, and the person who has the resources, the money or the airtime or whatever. And for a bystander of any color, of any race, to look at that scenario and say nothing and do nothing, that only serves the oppressor. And so I had a big wake-up call from that experience, and I'm so grateful that I did. And I am trying to find within myself the ways that I can be actually physically active, because for the moment it's just a lot of writing and a lot of speaking loudly on behalf of people, of causes, of organizations, whatever the case may be. And I'll get to the active part of activism hopefully soon, but I am grateful to now understand the role and responsibility that I have, and the absolute privilege that I have of having a global stage and having a microphone and being able to speak on behalf of people who need a microphone or need a global stage. And I don't know how far my voice goes, but I'm going to use it. I'm going to use it big time.
Well, you've got that tattoo on your arm that says "In Service."
I do.
And you also just mentioned your tour, so you're heading off now around the world?
I am.
What's
This is an
next for you?
8-month odyssey that I'm on. It's the most ambitious thing I've ever done, and I'll probably never repeat it quite like this, because, oh boy. But I started out in India, Thailand, Hong Kong, Malaysia, Singapore, came here to Bali for Bali Spirit, which was really, 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 really special. I loved it so much. I want to come back every year, guys.
Is this your first year here?
Yeah.
Oh.
I've come to Bali before. I came in 2015, just after an Australia tour. Rob Weber, who is a co-creator of Bali Spirit Fest, he reached out to me, or to my Australian tour manager, and he said that he was a fan, which is sweet and adorable and lovely, and that he was curious to know if we had it in our schedule to pop up to Bali to do a free concert at the Yoga Barn before my band and I went our separate ways and headed home. And we did that, and we had the most amazing response, and from that we made a deal that I would come back in 2017. So it's probably going to be more like every 2 years if they'll let me in. Because even years usually are domestic and odd years are international.
So your offering is your beautiful concerts, but you're also offering meditation and yoga as well, and singing live to the meditation, which is just a dream, really.
For me too, for me too.
Yeah.
This was a similar discovery to the I can dance to instrumental music as an improvised thing. I became a yoga teacher. I was a singer, musician. I started planning a concert tour, and somebody sort of casually said, do you want to come and teach a yoga workshop as well? Or maybe could you stay an extra day, and that way you won't have to move as quickly and you can have the morning off and whatever. We'll do a yoga workshop the first day, a concert the second, or vice versa. And I sort of went, oh, that could be cool. And I happened to have my band with me, so they played live music through the whole thing, and then I sang for meditations and shavasana and things like that. But I was able to hold space as a teacher in one section, and then hold space as a creator of sound current in the next section. I've begun to understand how to hold space in both ways at the same time, and it involves paying really close attention and being as attuned as possible to the flow of energy, and choosing sets of meditations and exercises that, well, that allow for fluidity. Because that's actually a big, important thing in my classes. I feel like you can get to a really quiet, sacred space inside of a Kundalini yoga class or any spiritual practice that you're in, and then a teacher or someone can do or say something that completely removes you from that. And what I'm striving for is to let that begin and continue all the way through the end. I don't want it to get interrupted until maybe we sing Long Time Son and you've got to get in your car and operate heavy machinery to get home. So presence then, but get lost as much as possible until we're done. It's one of the reasons why I encourage hugs at the ends of classes and concerts. I'm pretty high by that point in time, and I imagine that other people might be as well. So for us to hug each other and get nice and grounded is key for me. Yeah. Hold it in. Be still. Maintain the posture, exhale. One last time, inhale deeply. Hold it in. Arms high, high over the head. Reach, 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 reach. Reach, reach. Exhale. Just for good measure, reach up one more time. Inhale. Higher than you've ever reached before. Let it go. Relax the hands in Gyan Mudra. Close the eyes. Be still. May we give peace to each other. May we show up as our authentic selves. May we share who we are with the world unflinchingly. May we love ourselves unconditionally. May we be the change. Peace to all, light to all, love to all. Satnam.
It's so amazing hearing this story from you, because watching you perform and, there you are, so composed and so authentic. And I've heard other people say that, but I'm sure you get that a lot. And that's just something that, immediately garners respect from anybody on the same path. It's like when we see truth, we recognize it, and it's just so beautiful. And you were jamming away there with your musicians.
They're so good, no? Just
but just
unreal.
The freedom of expression, the confidence of expression, like you were saying, the bluesiness, the gutsiness, the passion, the fire, the realness, all of that there. So it's like such a seems like, wow, compared to the person that you were talking of before who was a little bit scared to just take the mic and sing in the background.
Yeah.
Wow.
Well, I feel like we all go through some version of that, probably 3 or 4 dozen times in our life. And sometimes the difference between A and B is almost staggeringly enormous. And sometimes it's just a little transition, but we've opened into something brand new that was never there before. And hallelujah, how amazing. And that gives us the courage to open a bit further. And I feel like so much of the experience I've had so far as a creator, as a presenter, as a teacher, as a performer, has informed all of the facets of the way that I live my life. All of the choices, all of the, well, for total example, for very clear example, the process of finding my authentic way of making sound made it so that I never wanted to do anything else with anything less than total authenticity. It brought me so much freedom and joy and such a grounded resonance in my being that I thought, well, if I can have this experience here, who's to say I can't have it in every facet of my life? So I would test it out a bit more in the way I communicated. And I would say a hard truth, even though it can be really uncomfortable to say hard truths. And I would recognize how much that served me and the other person, and it would further solidify the foundation that I would then move forward on. Do I still make a colossal mess of communication sometimes? Yes. And does stuff go sideways? Absolutely. I haven't got it all figured out, and I probably never will. But at least the attempt is there, the reaching, the striving, and the commitment to being as authentic as possible, as often as possible, in every way. Because I mean, what else is there?
So just bringing things to a close, is there a final message that you'd like to share with everybody who'll be watching this?
Self-love is not overrated. It's maybe the most important thing there is, because when we love ourselves, so many ripple effects come into being. You love you, that means you're taking care of your physical body. You love you, that means you're doing things that nourish your soul. And in the process of nourishing your soul, you're opening up something that is a part of why you're here, what you're here to do. You loving you means taking action on those things that are part of what you're here to do. You loving you means honoring the people with whom you have relationships. And that creates such goodwill and such good vibes. And I mean, it sounds so earthy, crunchy, but the whole planet is impacted by you loving you. And the world simply wouldn't be the same without your participation, your voice, your energy, what you create. And I'm not just talking about art. We create our lives with every breath. We create our world with every action. What you create and how you create it is so important for the health of the planet. And I believe that the world will find some sort of peace when we're all showing up as who we are. And we can't do that without loving ourselves, flaws and all. You got to do it with things exactly as they are, not when 20 pounds magically melt away, and not when skin clears up. I had acne as a teenager and young adult, and I used to look in the mirror and whimper, and I wanted to hide all the time. And then one day, a couple pounds heavier than I really thought I should be, or oh man, I was judging myself pretty hardcore then. And with my skin as it was, and with a job that I didn't love, and with relationships that were tricky and complicated, and with very little money in the bank, one day I looked myself in the eyes, in the mirror, and I said, I love you now. I'm not going to wait until later, because maybe I don't get later. I love you now, exactly as you are. Please love you now. You might not get tomorrow. And please be you now. I guarantee that the only regret you'll ever have at the end of life is the things you didn't do because of fear, because of doubt, because of insecurity, or some discrepancy between who you know yourself to be and who you're presenting to the world. Be you. Be true. And enjoy it.
Thank you for watching once again, and join me next time here on Heart to Heart with me, Shakti Sundari.